Welcome to Strip Cover Lit. I'm Adrian Fort, and Dalton ruins people's birthdays.
And I'm Dalton Gentry. And this is The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, Part 3. This is Book 2, all the way up into A Journey into the Dark. And you're good. You're ready. You're pumped. Lord of the Rings.
I hate everything.
Anyway, where would you like to start with this? There's a lot to talk about here.
I am going to throw out a quote from 267 that we can simmer on, we can put on the back burner while we go through the rest of it, because I want to come back to it later, but I want this out there in the ether.
See, when Adrian starts with something like this, it's either a great quote that we're going to need, or it's going to be something to piss me off. But carry on.
I think this is actually going to be game-changing for you if you have not thought about the novel in this way.
I hope so.
They spoke no more of the small news of the Shire far away, nor of the dark shadows and perils that encompassed them, but of the fair things that they had seen in the world together, of the elves, of the stars, of trees, and the gentle fall of the bright year in the woods.
That's the one?
That's the one.
We're going to keep that on the back burner for a bit.
Yes.
Okay. I think we have to start towards the beginning of our reading with the Council of Elrond.
Okay.
We get to meet the elves. Bilbo is obviously there as well with them now.
Yeah, I'm not sure why, but I read the elves with Australian accents. I don't know if I put that out there last time or
not. No, you didn't, but
I don't know why.
I buy into it. The Council of Elrond is the changing point of this novel. We've talked about that a lot. It is a very famous literary scene that a lot of people hold very dear.
It is a very famous scene.
Okay. And the Council of Elrond finishes essentially the preface. We've gotten through the history.
280 pages in.
We've gotten through the history, and now the journey is in motion.
Right.
We are starting to get a little bit more action, which is hopefully going to keep interest a little bit more, because I know a lot of people are struggling with Lord of the Rings. But the Council of Elrond is very important. Any thoughts about the Council?
In what ways?
Literary ways, how you read it, how you interpreted it, how you feel about it.
I want to know what you like so much about it.
Okay, we've had this argument so many times, and even off camera, you're like, why do you like this?
Yeah.
Why do you enjoy this? And it's hard to explain. Maybe
it should not be.
Maybe I am very enveloped in the fantasy ideal of this, because this was a huge thing for me growing up. The whole fantasy ideal, Dungeons and Dragons, things like that. And this is like being immersed in that world. This is the perfect world that was built for something like that. Big Dungeons and Dragons player for a long time. Usually run what's called as the Dungeon Master who sets the world up. And in order to set up a fantasy world, you have to build a world. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of commitment. This is the ideal perfect world. The amount of work that went into this is just incredible. I mean, this has backstory, this has history, this has everything. So that portion of my life that I was so enveloped in the fantasy genre, that this is it. This is the pinnacle of that.
Let me go into a personal story a little bit.
Okay.
I am 31 years old, and one of the things that's keeping me up at night right now is the fact that I'm a loser. Okay? I am not good at anything. I am not accomplished at anything. I do not own anything. I have nothing, right? This is something... I think we're all a little bit afraid of that in our own lives from time to time, right? Hitting a birthday does that to you, right? When you're at a certain stage in life, I think you start questioning a lot more maybe your value than you did earlier, because there was always the promise of later years. Mm-hmm. It is possible, it is very possible, to work as hard as I have worked and end up nowhere with nothing, right?
Okay.
It's possible. That's one thing that can happen to you in life. This is not a movie where putting in the work simply means that you've got a payoff.
Yeah.
Right?
Failure is possible.
Failure is possible. Putting in the amount of work to a backstory, to a world, to different creatures that J.R.R. Tolkien has done does not guarantee a literary payoff. And I don't see one here.
Okay.
I think this is a net loss.
Now, no, not a net loss.
This is a net loss.
I
I feel in a worse place for having read this.
Okay, but from Tolkien's standpoint, this is a success, absolutely. A rousing success.
Oh, financially, sure. He's got this... People who love it, sure.
Who created a world, a following, defined a genre.
It's still a loss.
Okay.
I can't give you credit for anything here.
This
is like... Did you ever see Billy Madison?
Yes, I did.
Remember when Billy Madison goes on that rant about... at the end, when he's trying to earn his degree or prove that he's better than the other guy, and he goes on that rant about that kid's book, and the guy goes, I award you no points, I hope you burn in hell,
Yes.
That's how I feel here. J.R.R. Tolkien, I award you no points. We're all dumber for having listened to you.
Ouch.
I hope you burn in hell.
Ouch. The Council of Elrond. Let me put on my Adrian hat for a second.
Go on.
We talk about Christianity and the representations of Christianity a lot in literature. The Council of Elrond is the representation of temptation. This is the temptation of the evil. This is the snake in the Garden of Eden saying, hey, take the fruit. Because if you look at it, you have Dark Lord Sauron, literally a Dark Lord who has basically tempted the men, the literal men that they refer to as the men of this world, with power.
Yeah.
Here's the One Ring. Here's the power. He wants it back, obviously, but it is the power to control the world. But within that comes the accepting that you're going to be a Dark One. You are embracing the Dark Lord's power. This is, word for word, Tolkien putting his religious beliefs into text. It is for the greater good that we resist the temptation of evil, no matter how great the payoff of the evil.
I don't know that... I mean, sure, yeah. The first place that a lot of people in the Western world are exposed to that is through Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is probably, like you say, a direct representation in these texts, but that is not an idea unique to Christianity.
Okay.
In fact, not even using dark. That goes back to Zoroastrianism, right?
And I think you could make that argument for another thing, a lot of other things as well. We've talked about this being a representation of World War I, World War II, the era in which J.R.R. Tolkien would have been fighting.
Right.
Again, here is the opportunity to envelop yourself in the power of the enemy, to embrace the enemy and receive what could be limitless power.
Yeah, I kind of like this Sauron guy.
I hate you so much. You like Sauron?
Yeah, he seems like a stand-up fella.
Okay.
He's very straightforward.
Okay.
Right? He doesn't lie to anybody. He's got that... And for me, that was the best scene in there. Who was he talking to? Where he's trying to pressure him into giving up the
ring?
Bilbo, right? He's trying to... Because he knows... This guy knows who Bilbo is.
Okay.
He's like, okay, you know what? Take your time. Do your thing. But when you come up with an answer, it better be the right one.
Why am I having a blank spot? Because I don't think it was Bilbo. They were pressuring the Dwarven Lord.
Yeah. Into giving Bilbo up, though.
Yes. If he gave Bilbo up, he would receive the 3 rings that were given to the Dwarf Lords.
Yes.
Or the 5 rings, or the 7, or the 9, or numbers. And you would rule Moria again.
Right.
With limitless power.
But he doesn't present that. That guy doesn't present it as the dark side.
No.
He presents it as the side of victory.
Yes. We had the opportunity here.
Yeah.
And he didn't say no, and he didn't say yes. He's still mulling it over.
Right.
So
which I thought that was a very well written scene.
Okay.
Where the pressure from Sauron came across directly.
Okay.
Impedingly.
A little bit of politicking, perhaps?
Right, but not in the evil genius way, right? Like there was no sort of moments.
This is realistic.
It was you could see this guy sitting there looking forward, being like, hey, right here. Take your time, but come back with the right answer. And it better be the right answer, right? That's what it was.
Okay.
It was a moment of intimidation, which is very difficult to get through in text.
Okay. I have to bring this up now. I hate you. And I hate having spent this past year reading with you.
That makes sense.
Because I enjoy this book. I always have. But now I have to read it with Adrian in the back of my mind. And little Adrian sits back there and he says, hey, what about this part here, Dalton? Did you catch that this time around? How do you feel about that?
What was it?
We also read Harry Potter. That's a series that we're working our way through. And the Dark Lord in Harry Potter is he who shall not be named. Boromir, at one point in the Council of Elrond, says that in the land of Gondor, we do not speak his name. The Dark Lord, who shall not be named. And that's when little Adrian in the back of my mind just had that little ping moment where he's sitting there with a cigar.
Ruining your life, kid.
Yes. And then I sit and think, I'm like, oh, if I remember correctly, the Dark Lord fell because after he killed Isildur's father, Isildur rose up against the Dark Lord and defeated him. At which point, Isildur was granted limitless power via the ring, of course. That sounds an awful lot like Harry Potter. An awful lot. And maybe I'm going back against my argument of saying, all fantasy literature comes from Lord of the Rings. No, that sounds directly stolen from Lord of the Rings. So, I hate you.
Yeah, I mean, this goes back just 1 week when I went off on that little rant about how closely characters in Lord of the Rings seem to characters in Harry Potter, and
Yes.
you said, well, it's not really a big deal.
That's when little Adrian pinged into the back of my mind, and I'm like, shit. I have to say something.
Now, it was interesting to me to see what the true power of the ring was, because it makes you represented in both the real world and the spirit world.
Essentially
Spirit,
yes.
Spirit world?
Yes.
What was it? The Wraith world. Something like that, right? So you sort of have dual citizenship. The power of this Dark Lord is the dual citizenship of, I'm over here being an asshole, but I'm also in here being an asshole. When you're not here.
It's very unfortunate the way he works.
One thing that stood out to me again was this mention of Strider as the man from the West.
Okay.
Right, I built him up as the cowboy last time. And I said it could be a cowboy, but it could be a pirate a little bit. Could be the swashbuckler a little bit. But he talks a lot like a cowboy.
Okay.
This is a cowboy.
And we did get to know a little bit more about his backstory, where he comes from. So that's very interesting. We have some character development beginning.
He comes from the Wild West. Doesn't he?
He very much so does. He has enveloped himself into a world of being a ranger, which is being basically the cowboy of Middle-earth. Now, the Fellowship itself, the party, the company, whatever you want to call them, I think is very accurate, again, to our World War references.
Yes.
Because this is the representation of the inhabitants of Middle-earth. This is the elves, this is the men, this is the halflings, this is the dwarves. All of the free-thinking inhabitants of the Middle-earth are bonding together for the first time in, centuries, however long you want to go for the time frame.
It's been ages.
It's been ages. They're bonding together to defeat a greater evil. So you do get a lot of history, again, playing in here, because this is this is everybody coming together to fight against the axis of evil, so forth.
Right.
So I like it. I think it's good. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Adrian, would you like to give a negative point now? Because I know you probably have one. You're just ready to hit me with it.
I don't have any more negatives. I've just got a little bit of a thing, like I said earlier, that might be a game changer if you haven't thought of the novel in this way.
Okay. Before we get to that, we talk a little bit about characterization, because we're starting to learn more about the characters. I think you are going to enjoy Boromir as a character. We get to obviously learn a lot more about Striders, more about Frodo and Bilbo. Interesting enough, we also get to learn more about Gandalf in the Mines of Moria. Not so much his backstory, where he comes from, but what it means to be a wizard. And I was hoping you would just cling to that ideal and love Gandalf. Because Gandalf is the man, when, action is needing to be taken, says, all right, hold on, let's have a cigarette. Let's think this out. Let's make sure we're taking the right course of action, because we have one fucking chance to do this, and we're going to do it right the first time.
Right.
So I was hoping that, once we get characterization of Gandalf, Adrian's going to be like, I like Gandalf, I'm okay with him.
It was interesting to me to see him in the Tower of the Grey.
Okay, Saruman?
Saruman. Yeah.
Okay.
Sauron and Saruman?
Sauron and Saruman. Terrible name choices.
Yeah. Especially because they're both trending towards the same guy, right? Like
Saruman is now a follower of
yeah.
Sauron. But no, this is the leader of the Wizard Order.
Yeah.
Who has
fallen.
Yes. And this is Gandalf going to seek his counsel and realizing that he has fallen, and therefore having to escape.
Yeah, I was a little shady on how he got away.
On the back of an eagle.
Okay. So, So like Abe Lincoln in that epic rap battle between who was it, Mitt Romney and
Where he flew,
Barack Obama? Yeah.
Rode off on the eagle?
Yeah, where he comes in with the eagle. Yeah.
Yes, Gandalf does fly off on an eagle.
That's upsetting a little bit.
Okay.
It's weird to see.
Okay.
It lost me a little bit in the text.
Okay.
So I'm not sure. I'm sure it's my fault, but yeah, it lost me a bit.
All right. I feel like I've made my points that I wanted to make. Blow my mind.
Okay, so Bilbo is a writer, right?
Yes.
He is not simply a writer of history, but also of song.
Correct.
Now, a lot of times histories were written through songs, and I think this is a direct representation of how history was, right?
And a lot of people have been questioning how you feel about all the songs. So,
well, it's very realistic.
Yes.
Especially for a world with primitive technologies.
Okay.
Right. Beowulf is a song.
Yes.
All of these things were songs, but he is not simply a writer of histories like Beowulf. He's also an author of the top 40 songs that the hobbits sung in the woods, right?
Okay.
And this is another reflection of hobbits as people, right?
Okay.
They like songs. They like dance. They
Bilbo
like to
in the
sleep.
weekly top 40.
Yeah. So that was interesting to me, right? Now let me throw this quote back out there again, because we're gonna go back to it a couple times. They spoke no more of the small news of the Shire far away, nor of the dark shadows and perils that encompassed them, but of the fair things they had seen in the world together, of the elves, of the stars, of trees, and the gentle fall of the bright year in the woods.
Okay.
Right? So it becomes more and more obvious as we get through this that J.R.R. Tolkien is identifying heavily with Bilbo, right?
Okay.
Bilbo is the older guy at this point.
Who has fought the battle before.
Right. J.R.R. Tolkien's a little bit older when he's publishing this.
Yes.
Right? So you're probably getting to a draft that is closer to your sentiments as you publish it than the first draft. So this is something that's been gone over and combed over by him. So he's identifying with Bilbo the writer. He's been off to foreign lands. He's older and mysterious. Like you say, he's been in war. Tolkien has also spent a lot of time with Bilbo, as The Hobbit was published in 36,
Yes.
18 years prior to The Lord of the Rings being published.
And The Hobbit would have been in Tolkien's formative years where Bilbo is going on the journey. That's Bilbo's journey.
Right.
So.
Right.
Okay.
So this quote on 267, Bilbo is the older, more experienced guy. Frodo is the younger guy. Where they start talking about other things. This is them. Frodo's now a man.
Yes.
Right. He had his 33rd birthday. He is a man. He is fully expressed. He has traveled. They are able to speak of other things.
Okay.
Right. So Bilbo being a man, Frodo coming into manhood. This quote on 267 feels a lot like a father talking to a son, doesn't it?
Okay.
They're no longer talking about the house. They're no longer talking about, boy, remember when you were in Pop Warner football and you broke off on that 80-yard run and won the game? They're speaking of, Dad, I'm getting a job after college now.
Okay.
And Bilbo's saying, well, you want to look at pensions, you want to look at this, you want to look at that.
Okay.
This is a higher form of speech, right? So this is a father speaking to a son in a coy, backwards, dismissive sort of way that only writers know how to do, because writers are terrible at actually expressing themselves. That's one thing we never want to put out there. We're terrible at actually expressing ourselves, so we have to do it through characters.
Yes. Yes, we are.
And when you look at things, this would have been a point in his life, I believe. I looked it up and I lost my notes, which is very depressing to me, where J.R.R. Tolkien's son was getting older.
Yes. So is this Tolkien, as Bilbo,
Yeah.
getting to that point with his son Frodo?
And that's what it feels like.
Okay.
It feels a lot like that.
And there is a father-son relationship between Bilbo and Frodo. I mean, I'm sure somebody's going to say, well, they're not father and son. The relationship is there.
Yeah. And it was set up that way.
That is a very interesting point. And I think I can strengthen your point as well. Before Frodo left on his journey,
Yes.
before Frodo went out as a man to live his own life, what does Bilbo do? The last thing Bilbo does. he gives him the family heirloom.
Right.
Here's my mithril shirt.
But if we're going along those things, what is the last thing that he gives him that holds power?
Oh, the ring?
The ring.
Yes.
What does the ring represent? In the Freudian terms, the ring represents femininity, right? So he is not only claiming his masculinity and his manhood through putting the woman on his finger, right?
Okay.
Through assuming that power in that way, but that comes as a direct hand-me-down from his father, from the father figure.
Okay.
This is the father having the birds and the bees talk with the son, right?
Okay.
And then later, once he's experienced the birds and the bees and he meets Dad again, they're speaking of the real world.
Yes.
So it is that act of losing the virginity, so to speak, that makes you the man. That is the cultural moray. That is the what is it? The not celebration, but that's what makes you a man. You assume that power.
Okay.
And then you have to have it for a little bit, right?
Okay.
You got to carry it around a little bit.
Yes. Once you've gone through the formative years of having that, you do go back to your father. And it's at that point where you don't talk about the things you used to do or
childhood at all.
Or childhood at all. You talk about what's coming next.
Yeah.
That's pretty damn
Not
interesting.
Not only what's coming next, but what you have to do.
What you have to do, yes.
And what is Bilbo's main regret in this chapter, or in this series of chapters?
That he can't go on the journey.
That he can't go.
Yeah.
He's not going.
So
Look, son, you're going to move on in life. I'm not always going to be there.
Yes. So is this the father finally coming to terms with his age, his weakness, and attempting to envelop his son in the wisdom that he knows?
With his entire mortality.
Yes, this is what I know, son. This is what you need. This is your journey now because I can't do it.
Yes.
And that's his regret. And, that's the thing, when you get towards that age in life, you either reminisce and enjoy the old times or you regret never having them. This is Bilbo reminiscing and enjoying, but having the regret that he can't go again.
Right.
He's coming to terms with his age and his inevitable death.
And when we look at it a little bit deeper, when we realize that this is a story of father and son, and we look at the fact that The Hobbit was published earlier, right?
Okay.
And The Hobbit features Bilbo, with whom J.R.R. Tolkien strongly identifies.
Okay.
Who was The Hobbit written for?
Hobbit was written for children.
Yes. The Hobbit is a children's book.
Okay.
So when you're the dad of a young boy, you're writing that children's book.
You're writing the children's book of your journey.
Yes. When you have gotten older and your son is now a man, you're writing a story about the same characters for adults.
Okay. I can't speak educatedly on the relationship between J.R.R. Tolkien and Christopher Tolkien.
No, absolutely not.
But I do know, I'm fairly certain, I will say with confidence, that Christopher Tolkien had a very close relationship with his father.
Because he's who carried on the work, right?
He carried on his work. There was a big heave-ho when the films came out, because Christopher Tolkien said this was not my father's story.
So not only did he carry the ring, but he defended it.
We're done here. We're done. Do we need to finish the book?
I won't.
We're going to finish the book. We're going to finish the fucking book. That's a damn good point. Look at you.
I think it's very interesting. Look, I don't think it's the only thing that's in here.
Okay.
I don't think it's all that's going on here. But I think that it is interesting to look at, and though I will not be reading this again, for anyone who does, I think it would be interesting to maybe explore a bit.
Fair enough. I like it.
Look, that's the literature, right? That is the small through the big.
Okay.
That is the relationship of a father and son through the tale of an entire world trying to displace an impending doom.
Okay.
Right? That's the small through a big, as opposed to the big through the small. And both of those things are the literature moments.
Okay.
Right? So I know I've had a couple people ask me, you keep saying literature is the small through the big or the big through the small. What does that mean? This is the relationship of a father and son where you realize that your son is coming into manhood as told through a mythical world of magic and dragons literally about to explode. That's a big situation.
Yes, it is.
But it's expressing that small thing, isn't it?
It is. I think the next reading that we get through next week, the last week of the Fellowship of the Ring, we're going to get into Christian themes a lot again.
Okay.
Oh, are we? And it's going to be interesting, but we are going to get a lot more character development. I think we can continue to play on this a little more. I'm hoping.
The father-son dynamic?
Maybe. I'm going to try to make that stretch. I do want to reread it again to make sure I'm comfortable to piece things together.
Okay.
But we are going to be getting... I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to spoil anything else.
Here is what... For anyone who's reading along for the first time, here's what I am going to be watching for as we move forward as far as that father-son dynamic is concerned. When you are writing a story of your son, what ends up happening? You write him a bigger legend than you have. Everyone wants their children to have a better life than they had, right? So it's going to be interesting to me to see if Frodo simply takes the ring and runs with it, or if Frodo takes this massive battle and becomes the hero.
Okay.
Because I have no idea how this plays out.
Okay.
But if he takes that, and becomes the hero, that is the father. That is every parent saying they want their children to have a better life than them.
You're going to get a taste of that. But again, this is 3 full-size novels. All your battles and everything and all your legendary stuff, you're not even going to get close to it.
Okay.
But you are going to get a sliver of...
There is a payoff for this novel, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
It does end... we say abruptly. This is abrupt.
Oh!
This is to be continued.
Oh!
But anyway, if you want to get through this with us next week, we will be finishing up the Fellowship of the Ring. Make sure you give this video a like because Adrian finally found something good to say about the Lord of the Rings. And hit that subscribe button to join us next week on this journey.
Don't let Dalton fool you. I didn't say anything good. I said something analytical. Follow us on Twitter @StripCover and on Facebook @StripCoverLit.